Welcome to the Equinety Podcast, where horse owners just like you share their incredible Equinety stories and how Equinety is changing their horses' lives. Whether you're searching for something to give your performance horse better focus, faster recovery, and more stamina, or in the extreme case where all hope seems lost, give your horse what it needs to help heal at a cellular level, you'll find it here. So jump in on today's episode to hear how Equinety is helping horses worldwide. Now, welcome your host, John Dowdy.
Hello and welcome to this week's Equinety Podcast. We're swinging up into New York this week. We've got Jessica Martin on the call. Jessica, welcome to the Equinety Podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to share my story and let people know how great this product really is.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time, and of course, we're always excited to have guests on. So this week, we're going into the barrel racing world, and we're going to talk about Mickey, which was your dream horse, ended up being that way, but let's back it up. And how old were you? How did you acquire Mickey, and what were your dreams and goals as a young girl?
Well, I was 11 years old, and I was really kind of just looking for a horse. My parents had a rodeo company, and I was really deciding I really wanted to get into the sport myself. And we ended up getting this horse, Mickey, from not necessarily a kill pen, but that's where he was going to end up. And he was pretty cheap. We didn't expect him to be at all a barrel horse. And one day I set up the barrels. We're just going to play around in a halter, and he kind of took off like he already knew the pattern. And he did. He knew it 100%. And
that's funny.
Yeah.
So you're hanging on for dear life here.
I was 11 years old. I was in a halter. I had no expectations whatsoever. My cinch wasn't tight, and off we went.
Oh, man.
Not at all expecting that whatsoever. But he turned into the absolute perfect horse. Others questioned my parents and were kind of like, this isn't necessarily the safest horse for an 11-year-old and to run barrels on, and he honestly wasn't, because he was a little more powerful than an 11-year-old needed. Yeah. But we handled it, and he was my absolute dream horse.
Wow. So what did what kind of times was he running? What caliber of horse did he end up turning into?
Well, when I first got him, we were in the youth, and I was 11 years old, and we were running 1D times. We were winning the buckles, and we were doing really, really good. And my first year in the open division, 18 and older, we placed at the first 4 rodeos, and the 5th rodeo is when he got hurt. I mean, he was a 1D horse, and he won me many buckles in the NBHA division and super shows, and he really got me everywhere I planned to be way earlier than I planned to be at.
Right. Wow. So, from having the dream of being able, or just wanting to run barrels and acquiring a horse, and all of a sudden you've got a horse knew exactly what he was doing.
Absolutely.
That's pretty. Okay, so now you're trucking right along thinking, hey, I'm living my dream, and then we have an injury. What exactly happened?
Well, we were running to the first barrel, and he just kind of took a wrong step, and to me it just kind of felt like he might have slipped, and we turned the first barrel, and he completed the run like nothing ever happened. And the second that he stepped out of the arena, he was dead lame. He tore his lateral stifle completely off and took a piece of bone with it when it came off.
Oof.
Yes, it was a career-ending injury, and after a couple vet visits, it was a life-ending injury as well. I had a local vet come first, and local vet kind of anticipated that it was a broken pelvis after doing an internal exam, and suggested that I get some x-rays done and do some other tests to be positive. But he kind of said, that's stall rest in a certain position for at least a year before he can even move. And putting a horse down is normal with this type of injury. So before I moved on with that, I got a second opinion, and I went to Rhinebeck in about 2 hours away from where I lived. And they ruled out the broken pelvis, and that's when they found the lateral stifle injury. And they said, I mean, he can be outside, but he's going to be on his toe for the next few months or longer, and he won't really be pasture sound, but he'll be walking. You can put him down. That's what most people would do. And so I brought him home and really thought about it, and I made the appointment to put him down because he wasn't necessarily, I felt bad leaving him in that type of condition.
Yeah, I'm sure that would have to be pretty, well, with anyone. I mean, heartbreaking looking out there and see him just not being able to be a horse.
Right, just wobbling around. And I had other horses at the time, rope horses, and he was always the dominant horse. He always took over everybody. And at that point in time, he wasn't able to do that anymore, and I could see it was really messing with his head. So I actually had the appointment, and my mom was the one to find Equinety. She was just kind of researching things online, and it popped up, and she bought a case of it and said, let's give it a shot. I mean, at this point, nothing can hurt. And I started giving it to him. Gosh, it was not even 2 weeks when he was walking a lot better, and it was 3 weeks when he was walking even better, and 4 weeks he was walking flat-footed, and a little after that he was pasture sound. And I ride him still. I don't barrel race him anymore. And if he was younger, the vets kind of explained that things would have healed even better, and it wouldn't have been a career-ending injury, but they were completely flabbergasted that he was being ridden again. I was using him for the openings at the family business, at the rodeo.
Right.
Walk, trot, canter. He turned into kind of like a show horse. But he's being rode again, trail horse, and he's 20 now, and it's very surprising that he's still with us.
Wow. Okay, so from three-legged, only being able to walk on three legs, you've scheduled him to put him down because you're not seeing very much progress there. So your mom finds the Equinety product, and then obviously did you just push the schedule out to have him put down, or did you cancel it when you started seeing what was going through your mind there, or what was happening?
I had so much hope that in this product, after him being on it a week, I canceled it completely, and I said, I'm praying I don't have to remake this appointment again. And Equinety made that possible, and I honestly could not believe it. I had to share my story with the Equinety team, so I went online and typed it all in, and here I am.
No, that's incredible.
I can't believe that I can still look out in pasture and see him out there. He was my first horse I ever had. He was my first real barrel horse. I've been on rope horses before and peter-pattered around the barrels for fun, but he was my first real barrel horse, even though we didn't anticipate that at all.
Yeah.
But he was a one-in-a-lifetime horse. And to see him out in the pasture still is truly amazing.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to throw a couple things out there for those tuning in for the first time. Equinety Horse Excel is not a miracle supplement. Although after hearing this story, I say this a lot, you might scratch your head a bit. And this is not uncommon to hear a story. As a matter of fact, stories like this is what inspired me to actually start this podcast, because after it was about a 5 or 6 month time frame, and there was at least, a minimum of 50 plus phone calls, emails, different people calling in saying, hey, I want to thank you so much for this great product. Here's what it did for my horse. And so many of them were very similar to this. Some of them not as extreme. Some of them, they were scheduled to be put down. And I'm just like going, oh my gosh, my jaw's just on the table. And it hit me one day. I'm like, you know what? It's a real shame that I'm the only one hearing this story. And there's no way that I could tell the story the same way, because when it's not my horse, I didn't go through the emotional journey that you have and so many others have. And so I thought, well, maybe I'll start this podcast as a way to capture these stories and get them out, and really so other people can hear from the horse owner and they're not hearing from us. So that's kind of how the podcast was developed. Another thing, and it kind of taken on a life of its own. And I'll ask you this question because periodically we get comments in our Facebook advertising. Hey, are there any double, triple, quadruple, and hextuple peer-reviewed studies and all this kind of stuff done on this product? The short answer is no. I mean, there's studies that go back decades with amino acids and how they're beneficial. I mean, they're amino acids. They don't have any other option but to work. It just so happens that the specific combination that we have is specific to stimulating the pituitary gland, which releases the necessary hormones that help the body heal at a cellular level. So asking you the question, I mean, do you care that there's a study or not, really?
Absolutely not. I am just happy that I didn't see how it could hurt. I did my research on the amino acids, and I don't see why someone would necessarily need to have those studies, but I can understand if you want them. But to me, they don't mean anything because they help me out in ways I can't even imagine.
Yeah. And what I can appreciate from a medical veterinary vet tech, those are typically the ones that are asking for it. And that's the world they live in. And I can appreciate that. But, at the end of the day, when you hear these stories just over and over and over and over, they're amino acids, and, we're blessed. We have a product that works very well. And, as I said before, and I'll say it again, this is not a miracle product. We highly recommend that, you have your professional team, your veterinarians, your farriers, you're giving your horse the proper nutrition, everything else. It just seems to us, because we hear so many stories all the time, that this combination of amino acids, they just seem to be like the missing puzzle piece that really just takes your horse to the next level, or really gets it into the recovery stage faster. I mean, in all the injured cases that we've heard, they always tend to heal ahead of schedule. In this case, it was, holy smokes, you had him scheduled to be put down, and now he's riding in rodeos, So that's pretty awesome.
Yes, it is. And now I have every single one of my horses on it. All my performance horses are on it. All of my older horses are on it, just because using it as a precautionary system, for $1 a day, how can you go wrong? There's so many supplements out there, but this is the one that I found that's really worked, and I will always have my horses on it from now forth.
Yeah, and we hear that a lot. And overall, with all of your other horses, now you're talking performance horses that may not really have any issues going on, and you're using it kind of as a preventative. But what have you noticed across the board with all of your horses being on product?
Oh gosh, the product on the top, it tells you everything that it can possibly do. I have seen each one of those things happen in all of my horses. From hoof growth, I had a thoroughbred who couldn't grow a hoof wall, and I put him on it, and my farrier was like, "What did you do?" And I've had one for ulcers, and one for hair growth, really, and weight gain, and just one horse that was older and always stiff when he came out of his stall is now coming out of his stall bucking and kicking, feeling amazing. They're all on it for different reasons, and they're all taking in what they need, which is truly amazing. And I've been traveling. I'm in Florida. I've got my horses down here with me, and I went to Oklahoma first, and they made the trip from New York to Oklahoma and all over Oklahoma, and now Oklahoma to Florida. And that's quite a toll on horses. A lot of horses lose weight. A lot of horses get stiff, and every single one of them feel great. They look great. They didn't lose any weight. They didn't come off the trailer stiff, and they were on the trailer for 10 hours at a time. They were perfect, and I really think it has a lot to do with this product.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and not for the sake of agreeing. It's just we hear it all the time, and we've got a lot of people that are on the pro circuit that use this product, and that's one of the things that they say, that they haul better recovery stamina. Typically, where it used to take sometimes 2-3 days to recover from all the hauling and showing. Now it's like 1 day, and these horses are ready to go again. So
right.
We're blessed. It's pretty darn amazing. So, well, if there's anybody else, let me throw this in there because you just ran through, multiple horses with all kinds of different things. So going back to what the product is actually doing, in this case, what are we talking? 6, 7, 8 horses, maybe? I
buy and sell.
Oh, okay, there you go. Yeah, so it's multiple.
3 right now, but I've had 4 to, I would say 6 at least, on it so far, and all of them have done different things.
Right. Yeah, so one of the examples that I give is you could have 12 horses, you could have 100 horses. In this case, we're talking about, say, 6, but giving them all 1 scoop of Equinety because it's allowing that horse's body to release its own hormones. It's that horse's body that's sending the hormones to the problem area. So in essence, it's customizing to each horse's issues. And that's why it works in so many different areas. Your thoroughbred with the hoof growth and thicker, faster growing, healthier hoof walls and everything else. And then ulcers and hair growth and recovery and not so stiff. It's kind of customizing to each one. It's pretty darn awesome. So, well, if there's anybody tuning into this podcast, maybe for the first time, and they might be a little bit on the fence, is there anything that you could maybe say to them other than what you've already said that might get them to go ahead and try the product?
Well, what I found is if your horse has ever had Lyme disease or is in a place where they might receive Lyme disease, I had a horse who had Lyme disease, and it changed his world 100%. What they don't tell you is that the antibiotics strip horses of their amino acids, and a lot of them kind of get into a more of a state where it's harder to recover and harder to do this because they don't have those amino acids. And once I put this horse with Lyme disease on Equinety, it turned him around completely and made him feel like he was 10 years younger than he was. He was only 12, but it made him act and feel like he was 2. But honestly, I never would have thought that horse would perform the way he's performing now because of Lyme disease and because they caught it so late in his life. But in addition to that, I have become a producer and I sell the Equinety to people, and I have had multiple stories, not just by me, but from friends of mine who have 10 to 15 horses on at Burnt and Diana, and so many other people have told me amazing stories about what it's done, and I've never heard the same story twice.
Okay, so you just blew my mind here because you didn't mention you had a horse with Lyme disease.
Yes, I forget about it, but because I've been through so many, but the horse with Lyme disease, I mean, he became so stiff, and I understand his pain. I have Lyme disease myself. So there's just times where you wake up and you're like, oh, boy. And it's just stiff acting, and it strips you of your amino acids. And after some research, I really looked into that. And it was like every single amino acid that is on the Equinety product list. I mean, it's all being stripped away from the antibiotics. I mean, it might not even be Lyme disease. It might be something else that your horse was given antibiotics for. But these antibiotics strip them of their amino acids and plan to recover them, really. But in the end, it kind of hurts them a little bit.
Right.
And they never know, like, when it might strike. I mean, your amino acids are there for so many different reasons. And to have them gone is kind of scary if you think about it. And the way that the Equinety replenished it, it made the horse a different horse.
Wow.
Overall.
So how long, and since we're talking about this, we do have questions about horses with Lyme's and how it helps, and we have had some feedback on that, but since you brought it up, let's go a little bit more into detail on that and how it's affected yours. So how long was he dealing with Lyme's prior to using the Equinety product?
Oh, gosh, it was a year and a half. I mean, he had it for quite a while, and I didn't really know that the amino acids were stripped from him at that point in time. And then once I started giving it to him, I kind of was like, huh.
What were you noticing when you started giving it to him?
He wasn't as stiff. He would come out of his stall feeling like a spring chicken. He was 12, acting like he was 2. I mean, and I was looking at the list on the Equinety, and it didn't tell me that it was supposed to make him feel 10 years younger. But, I mean, I was kind of amazed in what he turned into. So I really looked into it because I had other horses on the product at that time, and they didn't change like he did. And so I kind of looked into Lyme disease because that's the only thing that set him apart from the other horses. And in my research, the antibiotics that they give horses is what strips them of their amino acids. And what I feel once they were replenished, he was kind of like, oh, wow, I feel amazing. And he was always, I mean, he was a barrel horse. I mean, he was always kind of like a little crazy. Mm-hmm. And he completely added 100% to that, and he was really crazy, but in a good way, of course.
Yeah. That's great. Now, I think it's also important to note, too, for anybody that might be concerned that their horse is going to be hot or crazy or anything like that using this product. There's nothing in this product that makes your horse hot or over the top or anything. It's kind of what you described as they feel better. So they might have a little bit more spunk because they feel better, but they're not hot, it's just.
Oh no, I actually had a horse that was extremely hot. Like I couldn't get him to go in the arena. He was warming up a big ball of sweat because he'd get so excited. And actually the Equinety product calmed him down. I mean, he was still, like he was a thoroughbred. He was still acted like a thoroughbred, but he was not nearly the same caliber he was. Like, he was uncontrollable before.
Wow.
And once I got him on Equinety, he kind of relaxed. He was relaxed, but he was energized because he felt good.
And still focused.
Absolutely. Still focused, like he wanted to do his job. He was ready to work, but he just was more of a energized, ready to work. Like, he wanted to do his job. But he was more focused because he wasn't throwing tantrums anymore.
Yeah.
Which awesome.
Yeah, it is. And, that's something that we hear all the time as well, is typically a horse that's hot will tend to bring them down, and one that's kind of lazy kind of brings them back up. So it's balancing the horse from the inside out and helping them to bring out their own personality while being overall well-balanced from the inside out is really kind of what it's doing.
Right, and it changed horses in multiple ways for me in all of my performance horses, from rope horses to trail horses to barrel horses mainly. I mean, it completely changed the caliber of horse that I was on.
Yeah.
I have a mare now that is a mare, and we all know how they can be.
Oh, yeah.
But she's relaxed, calmed, wants to do her job, but she's more focused. She knows her job. She always has. But before I got her, she kind of would daze off, like, oh, a bird. And now it's more of like, oh, the barrel.
Yeah.
And it's really refreshing, honestly.
Yeah.
It feels like I'm on a horse who 100% knows what it's doing instead of 99.9,
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great. Well, I tell you what, Jessica, I really appreciate you taking the time to share. Of course, we were really just going to be talking about your one horse here, and it went into all kinds of things, which I know you have a lot of experience with this product, and you referred out to a lot of your clients as well. But it's always great to hear from another voice and what you're experiencing on the ground, and what this was able to do for Mickey, your main barrel horse, is pretty miraculous in and of itself. And then I think this will also benefit those that might be dealing with Lyme disease. This product is definitely something to look into with all kinds of situations. And I think you've done a great job giving a lot of different examples here. So really appreciate it. Jessica Martin out of New York, thank you so much for taking the time to share all these stories here on the Equinety Podcast.
Of course, and thank you for having me. I'd love to share products and ideas with other people because I know the horse world can be difficult and tough, and finding something that really works is a blessing.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Of course. Bye.
That's all for this episode of the Equinety Podcast. For more information on purchasing Equinety, be sure to visit our website at teamequinety.com, where you'll also find product information as well as more testimonials on how others have seen amazing results by implementing Equinety into their horse's supplement regime. We'll have more stories on how Equinety is helping horses worldwide right here on a future episode of the Equinety Podcast.